kind of want to talk about a book that I've been reading recently. I've read it. Honestly, it takes me a while to read books because I love to ingest them in tiny bites, but with this book, I read it in 3 days. Sure, it's only 60 pages, but it's called Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. And Hermann Hesse has been my favorite author of all time. I'm currently reading The Glass Bead Game by him, and also I've read Damien, I've read Steppenwolf. Siddhartha kind of came to me at a time where it was feeling like my world was falling apart. I needed something to inspire me to keep going. And when reading this book, I just kept taking a bunch of notes, um, which I will read and share with you my thoughts and what I took from the book because it ended up helping me a lot, and I hope it helps someone out there too. Okay, so the first thing that I picked up on in the book that really opened my eyes and was like, it's something kind of obvious, but something that I think is important to be reminded of, and it's the fact that we can meditate on cause and effect. It's basically just the consequences of our actions. Like, that's basically it. But we have, sometimes we have a lot of thoughts about what we want and what we would like to see, things that we would like to have, and we only think about achieving these things. We don't think about the consequences of our actions that lead up to us either achieving these things or failing. Failing. It can be as simple as if I don't wake up on time tomorrow, I will be late for class, and if I'm late for class, I will not be able to finish my exam and I will get a bad grade and fail. But if I'm on time, I'm more likely to be able to get everything done in class, finish my exam, and get the mark that I deserve. And this way of thinking should be applied to all things in life. Of course, not to the extent where you're going crazy and you're just anxious about everything. But I think that it's so important to be a bit more cautious, conscious. Dude, these are dead. I really love dead flowers. I love getting bouquets of roses, bouquets of flowers, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait till they die. Because they just look so sick. But I always end up collecting the petals, and I put them in little jars and put them around my room, because I just really love flower petals, and I love the way they look. Um, but yeah, back to my point. Cause and effect, I think it's really important to be more conscious about um, how we have a direct impact on the course of our lives, because sometimes I know for me I feel so powerless. I feel like the world is controlling me and that I have no control over my life and I just have to go through the motions. And to an extent that's true. You can't control everything, but being aware of the butterfly effect, I guess, and like our direct influence on it, I think can be really helpful. But another concept that I was thinking about, and it's kind of, yeah, it requires a lot of imagination, but realizing that you don't really have to take life too seriously, even though serious things happen. I think humor and walking the earth lightly is something that is so beneficial, is so healing. Um, but also allowing time for grieving, allowing time for screaming in your pillow, for running around, sobbing your eyes out over something that happened to you. There's always time for that, and I think it's so important to make that time. And once you purge all those feelings out, is when suddenly you have the energy to walk a bit lighter on the earth. And I think it's a beautiful thing because recently I've been going through something really difficult, and it's been happening over the course of I would say a few months, but the height of it has been within this past week. The height of my emotions, at least. Like, I was feeling so anxious, so depressed. I was like, I will never feel better. This isn't gonna end. My feelings are just so overwhelming for me, and I would cry and I would vent, which is so important. I would be good to myself with the feelings that I had, even though it didn't feel like it. But whenever I felt overwhelmed, I would allow myself to cry. I would sit alone in my room, cross-legged, with candles all around me, and I would just sob it out. Or I would go into my closet and I would scream as loud as I can into a pillow until I felt tired out. And I would talk to my friends and I would journal and I would vent everything out until I got exhausted. And removing those feelings from my body and my mind again and again and again, even though, even if I was being repetitive, repeating the same grievances again and again and again, it really helped me get some of it out of me to the point where after a couple days I started feeling a bit lighter and I felt like, oh, maybe I won't kill myself. Maybe I won't off myself. But you know what I you know what I mean? Like it doesn't you have to give yourself time and you have to do things that make you feel good. And I know that sounds a bit cliche, but it's so important and I went through it. I went through it. Like I thought I wasn't gonna get out of it, but it made me feel so. This morning I woke up and I was like, I'm actually so powerful that I went through all of that and I'm coming out of it still graceful. Even if what I went through and how I went through it wasn't very graceful, I gave myself time alone. I kind of isolated myself from my friends and family for a week, but sometimes you need to. Sometimes that's required. And if you have good friends and family, they'll understand. And yeah, you just need to give yourself time. And some of the things I did, ooh, in Siddhartha, he says something really specific. Let me read it. He says, he says, he was talking about how meditation and spiritual practices only numb out the pain and suffering of life. And it only offers temporary relief, which I think is so true. And I think the reason why we do a lot of things is to numb out the chaos of life and the chaos and overwhelming feeling of the emotions we carry inside ourselves. And this is something that I actually don't think is unhealthy um, in little doses. After I would cry my eyes out or scream my throat out or just be bed rotting for hours and hours, I would get up and I would go to my cupboard and smell the best smelling tea I have. And for a moment, that would numb out the emotion. Or I would put on my headphones and I would listen to some music and that would make me forget for a little bit. Or I would watch a good movie. I was watching Suspiria, which is kind of crazy because it's that movie's traumatic to say the least, but it got me out of what I was feeling for a little while and it put me into another world. Um, I don't like saying numb out, but to take yourself out of the emotion for a little while after you've allowed yourself time to release can be such a healthy reset. And you just rinse and repeat. You do it again and again until at some point you start feeling a little bit more okay. And this is not to say that the feeling will never come back. Um, there has been times where I would be messaging my friends and I'm like, guys, I'm healed, guys, I'm okay. And then like 2 hours later I'm screaming in my closet again. So you have to take your time, you have to be patient. I needed a change of settings, so I'll continue what I was saying before, and basically I wrote this quote based on the book that says, you shouldn't only dive into your suffering. You also need to dive into the good. Don't let the pain be the loudest voice. Be free. And in the book it says that someone if someone is searching, they're unable to find because the only thing he thinks about is the object of his search. And it made me think a lot about my own situation and how sometimes I think about what I desire so much and the fact that I'm not getting it, to the point where the fact that I'm not getting it becomes my whole identity. And I forget that there are other things in life to care about. There are other things in life that are important, even though this one thing seems like the most important thing. Sometimes you need to feel inspired to snap out of that way of thinking. And that's something that this book did for me. Just the notion that I can consent to what my pain means for me. I can choose what my suffering means for me. I can choose for it to be a lesson if I really want it to, because a lot of the times, most of the time, it really is. But if something that I didn't want to happen happens to me, I can think more clearly about it. I can ask myself what was the cause and effect, like what was my role in things happening the way they did. But a lot of the times things just feel so out of my control. And that's something I've been struggling with lately. Just the feeling that sometimes life has like a set path that it wants you to go down, and you want to go down another path, but life just has a way of again and again forcing you to go on this one path. And it's just like, am I cursed? Like, genuinely, I've had a period of time where I genuinely thought I was cursed. I kind of still feel that way because, like, what the fuck is going on? But I'm finding better ways to cope with it. At least in this moment in time, I'm finding better ways to cope with it. And talking about it helps. I don't know if I'll ever post this video. It'll take a lot of editing because I'm really bad at talking to a camera, but I know that this is also something that I want to get better at, so cause and effect. If I do it and I practice it for a while, maybe I'll get better at it in the future.